Hello there my fellow holotable heroes and welcome to another Omicron video. Now this one I'm going to do something a little bit different than one of the ranking videos I've done recently, which is kind of going through my Omicrons and giving you my personal opinion of what I find useful or not. I want to approach this purely from the data side, so just looking at GAC insights and look what data tells us there. So let me first start off by showing you how I collected the data, just that you understand a little bit more about the process. So the same process would apply to 3v3, but I'm just giving you a 5v5 example. So what I've done was for each Omicron, I loaded up the seasons 38 and upwards, because seasons 36 and 37, at least from my experience here on GAC Insights, does not include Omicron data. And then in terms of the other filters I applied, so no cleanups, no attacking GLs, and no defense GLs. This was the default. There will be some situations where we will include GLs either attacking or defending, depending on the Omicrons, because some Omicrons are simply not designed to be used with or against Galactic Legends, whereas the other Omicrons, the whole purpose of them is to be used with Galactic Legends or to counter Galactic Legends. Then we are just using Kyber data, and then I made sure that both attack and defensive relic minimum is 1, just to ensure we don't have like some sort of relic unit versus gear 10, because again that would a little bit skew the data. And then moving down here, so as a star killer, for example, at the moment I'm excluding all of the 3-star killers Omicrons, and then for star killer, well, as you can see without Omicrons, he's doing okay versus non-GL defenses. For star killer, the data I was getting is versus Galactic Legends, because that's what really star killer is meant to be. As you can see, without any single Omicron, win rate versus Galactic Legends is only 7.66%. And now I just go ahead and include his first and most important Omicron, which is his unique. And now suddenly the win rate goes up to 62%. So it's quite a big jump, while it was like 57% jump by applying his Omicrons. So that's how actually I was then doing for each Omicron. Quite a long time to do it. So really hopefully you find this video useful and interesting. So now that I explained you how I got the data in terms of win rates and hold rates for defense, I didn't just want to do like a pure video of showing like the worst top 10 worst performing Omicrons, but I really wanted to actually do the most overrated. So in order to achieve that, we also have to look at different calculations. And now, because I'm no expert in data analysis, I actually ask my buddy Tech to explain you how we got this. Okay Tech, take it away. This is a delicate calculation. In order to get the unit's final score, we first have to divide the Omicron count by their Gear 13 count. This gives us the adoption rate. Next, we take the Omicron's win rate or hold rate and subtract from it the rate with Omicron excluded. Now this gives us the impact rate. Now we can calculate the unit score with dividing impact by adoption and multiplying it by 100. I hope you're still with me. We do this process for both 5v5 and 3v3 data. Now we can get the final score by getting an average between 5v5 and 3v3. It appears that my mission here is done. Tech, over and out. Okay, thanks buddy. Hopefully you were able to follow the formula. Now some other notes before we start looking at the top 10. And then the Omicrons that are only intended for 5v5, like Dr. Afra, or 3v3 like Tuscans, their scores are simply halved, just because obviously they can only be used half of the times. Now in terms of the units that were actually compared, like Star Killer versus Galactic Legends, so those were Star Killer, Riva, Malachus, Ben Solo, Kersantan, because he's used with Jabba, Drogon, he's used with Leia Organa, Seer, Bo, and then also some of the units also had included Galactic Legends in their own team, like Ben Solo with Rey, Drogon with Leia, and Kersantan with Jabba, because you can use them outside of those teams, but they were really built to boost those teams themselves, so it would make sense not to include these in the data. And finally, Step, Bow, and Bane are still quite new characters, so we have very limited data available. Now I did include data from those Omicrons, however data could still be a bit skewed, especially for Bane and Bow that have very powerful Datacrons right now. So maybe the data, you know, after a few more seasons where their Datacrons expire, they might appear in top 10, overrated or underrated. At the moment we'll have to wait and see how this data unfolds. Okay, so one more final thing I want to add as well. So when I was going through the data, sometimes including an Omicron, their win rate was decreased, which is a bit funny, but obviously it doesn't mean that actually applying Omicron makes your team worse. Every Omicron, no matter how little impact it has, there are always certain situations where it will help you out. Just getting all the data, it might not look overall like a very impactful Omicron. For those cases where actually the win rates or hold rates get worse by adding an Omicron, I think that just comes especially in case for those units that have multiple Omicrons, just because usually you know, the units with multiple Omicrons will be in rosters that are more in the top end of the Grand Arena, where it's more competitive. There are higher relics involved on defense, better modes involved on defense when trying to beat them. That's why it becomes a lot more challenging. We've got better Datacrons as well. Just taking Starkiller, for example, you know, if you just go somewhere in the lower Kyber where there are no Datacrons included, people don't have that tuned mods on their Ray teams, you know, Starkiller versus Ray is pretty near 100%. But once you get, you know, to the top end of Kyber, everybody got some crazy Datacrons. Starkiller for the last couple of seasons have been really struggling to take down Ray, so that's where I think where those kind of, you could say, reduction in efficiency comes with the Omicrons. Okay, so with all these details finally out of the way, I know it took a while, but I just wanted to give you a detailed explanation of how this data was collected and how I made these calculations to get to the scores that I will go through. So let's start first with counting down from top 10 to top 1 worst Omicrons for offense. Before we get into it, just to give you like an average figure, so in 5v5 on average, an Omicron increased the win rates by 10.40%, and then on 3v3 as well it was very similar. Omicrons increased the win rates on average by 10.3%. And also, to help me with the countdown, I invited my good old friend Yoda. Alright, Master, take it away. Something dark in the temple present is. So starting at number 10 for top overrated Omicrons is Dr. Aphra, one of her 3 Omicrons, so that's her special rogue archaeology. I don't even know what this does, to be honest. I just have her leadership applied. Let's go ahead and have a look. So we deal bonus damage to target enemy based on 50% of Aphra's potency, inflict buff immunity, healing immunity, and stagger on target enemy for 2 turns. Now that's quite surprising. You would think something dealing bonus damage here, you know, especially once you do get a lot of potency on Aphra, would actually make a huge difference. Same thing like maybe for healing immunity when you're trying to take down a Galactic Legends that, you know, is very tanky and constantly healing. So really surprised actually personally to see this on number 10. So let's look at the figures for this Omicron. So the adoption rate here is 40.06%. So, you know, 4 out of 10 people apply these Omicrons, which I'm not surprised because on paper this sounds pretty useful. Now it's a 5v5 only Omicron, so we've got the win rates here are increased by 0.94%. So only a marginal increase in win rates, and obviously in 3v3 this will not apply, so no score there, which gives us the offense score for this Omicron of 1.17. Inu, much conflict, since I do. At number 9, we have Boundless 4th Throw Omicron, so that's the special ability here on Starkiller. Now, unlike Aphra, I'm not too surprised to see this one here, because this one from my testing, it's a very niche use. It's only like when Rage Jedi training builds up so much mastery, she's constantly dodging because this attack can't be evaded. We also then lend, thanks to the Omicron, healing immunity and buff immunity that can't be dispelled, which is useful because then at least for 2 turns, obviously while other attacks are being dodged by Rey, she's not healing back up, so it helps you not to time out versus those teams. That's kind of the niche use for this. But as you know, with lots of Datacrons, they're making, I guess, Starkiller more difficult versus Rey anyway. This Omicron, looks like doesn't have that huge impact. So let's look at the stats for this one. So 54.3% adoption rates, over half of players actually apply this Omicron. Now in terms of the win rate impact, so in 5v5 it's an increase by 1.39%, and then in 3v3 decrease by 0.34%. So very little to no impact, and then this gives us the final offense score of 0.97. An ancient one, this is. 8, we have Darth Malgus, Korriban's Legacy, so that's the one on his unique. Let's see what it actually does, because I only have his leadership. So if all allies were sit at the start of the battle, instead the first time each turn doubt is dispelled on enemy, all other enemies that didn't already have are inflicted with doubt. Okay, so the main difference is, instead of applying to 2 with Omicrons, we apply to all units doubt. But in 3v3 we only have 3 anyway, so there is no impact there. So I guess a little bit better in 5v5, but again, not surprised that this one is here, because as you can see, personally I do not have applied it anyways, just kind of confirms my suspicion. So let's just give us some stats for this one. So 72.77% players actually equipped this Omicron, so a lot of people actually put it on with very little to no impact on the win rates. Speaking of win rates, in 5v5 it's a minus 0.45%, so slight decrease, while in 3v3 a slight increase of 0.36%, which gives it a final score of minus 0.06. Appearing yet again, you are. And at number 7, we still have Malgus up on the screen, because that's the other Omicron here on his special. Let's see what it does. So I guess the only benefit here you could really see is that if the target was already shocked, deal true damage to all enemies. And Darth Malgus gained 50% turn meter, but anyways, like Malgus, he doesn't deal so much damage in terms of his offense, so I don't think his true damage will be that high anyway. And again, gaining 50% turn meter, Sith Empire is all about fear and enemies missing turns. So again, getting a little bit faster set another turn for Malgus, I don't know, doesn't sound really all that impactful. So again, not surprised we have it here in top 10. So in terms of actual stats, so similar like the other one, in terms of the adoption rate, it's at 70.67%. We see a decrease by 0.69% in 5v5, and in 3v3 a slight increase by 0.3%, which gives the final score to this Omicron but with minus 0.28. Pleased to see you, Anakin Will. And at number 6, seem like Afra a bit surprised to see this Omicron here. Now, while yes, it is only a free Omicrons, we all know how annoying this one is to deal with when you are facing it on defense. Constant revives and everything, so if you don't have ways of preventing revives, you could just end up in an infinite loop of Tusken Raiders constantly reviving. So I guess while it's good on defense, it doesn't really make that much impact on offense. So just to give you some figures, so 42.12% of players apply this Omicron. No surprise, it's very annoying on defense. Obviously, it's not a 5v5 Omicron, so no impact there. And in 3v3, we actually see a decrease in win rate by 0.85%, hence the negative score of 1.01. Deceive me not, you will. And number 5, we have another Civ. This one, it's Talon's turn, so her unique on Omicron Civ Cruelty. So if the target enemy is inflicted with Isolate or Pain, Darth Talon's attacks gain additional effects. So we really have very limited use here, only if target is isolated or has Pain on them, which obviously mostly now Talon is kind of used with, I don't know, Bane, Civ Eternal, or Malgus. She's not really used with Trey all that much, that's why I guess this Omicron doesn't have that impact. And to make it even worse, the additional effects are only when Talon defeats an enemy. And Talon, she's not really... She does an okay damage with Treyas, their Omicron, if lots of debuffs are spammed onto your team. But how often do you actually defeat somebody with Talon? So lots of conditions actually on this Omicron. The actual effects are not bad. Gaining, stacking max protection and offense is really good, but triggering these effects is very, very hard to do, hence why I'm not surprised to see this Omicron on the list here. And we do have, in terms of the adoption rate, 40.23% people apply this Omicron. And in terms of the win rates impact, in 5v5 we see a reduction by 0.34%, and in 3v3 reduction by 1.22%, which obviously gives us a negative score of -1.94. Reclaim your throne, you will. And number 4 on the list is one of our latest units here that I do not have unlocked yet. So it's her Omicron on special. Reinforcements have arrived. I have no idea what it does, so let's go ahead and check it out. Lightside Mandalorians allies gain additional 2 stacks of Answers Resolve. To be honest, no idea what that is, because I don't have a bow, so I'm not really using her. And then if another Lightside Mandalorian ally wasn't able to assist, they instead gain a bonus turn. Okay, but as mentioned before, here Bo-Katan's stats are probably a little bit skewed because her data con is just so powerful, it kind of negates the actual impact that her Omicrons might have, so we'll have to wait for some more accurate data down the line. So let me give you the stats for this Omicron. So in terms of the adoption rate, 29.12% players apply, so about 3 out of 10. People apply it. And in terms of the win rate, in 5v5 it reduces the win rate by 0.95%, and in 3v3 it also reduces it by 0.50%, which ends up with a negative score of -2.49. Much anger, sense I do. And here we are, cracking the top 3 of most overrated Omicrons. It's one of Third Sister's Omicron. Guess which one it is? I'll pause for a moment. Did you guess it? It's Driven by Revenge, so that's her unique. So let's go ahead and check it out. So whenever First Sisters is revived from Hatred, the cooldown of Unyielding Onslaught is refreshed and she gains 100% offense until her next turn and ignores taunt effects for 1 turn. Now on paper, this sounds like a really powerful boost, so surprised to see it here. But at the same time, because this is most overrated Omicrons on offense, maybe not too surprised, because when using Riva on offense, how often she's actually defeated, am I right? In most cases she doesn't get defeated, so maybe this actually Omicron is more for the defensive purposes, not offensive purposes. I'm just giving you the stats for this one. So 39.53% people apply this Omicron, so almost 4 out of 10. And then in terms of the impact on the win rates, in 5v5 the win rates get reduced by 0.65%, and in 3v3 again reduction by 1.77%, which gives it a final score of -3.06. Only 2 there are, no more, no less. And at number 2 we have another new unit, but I think this one's similar like Bo-Katan because of their powerful datacron that we do have now for Bane. Maybe his Omicrons don't look as impactful as they should be. Again, like with Bo, down the road hopefully we'll get a little bit more accurate data. but for now it's his malevolent whirlwind, so that's the one Omicron I did skip myself as well. Because what essentially does, it gives some additional ultimate charge for Sith Eternal Emperor, and as you probably know by now, Darth Bane is much better on his own. He's a better lead, better unit than Sith Eternal, so really wasting Bane's potential if you are using him under Sith Eternal Emperor, hence why I'm totally not surprised to see this one on the list. Now in terms of the stats, 30.10% of players apply this Omicron, and in terms of the impact on the win rates, in 5v5 we see a decrease in win rates by 2.12%, and in 3v3 by also decrease win rates by 0.13%, which gives it its final score of -3.74.
Path to redemption, set you free it will.
And number 1, so this is the most overrated Omicron in the galaxy, at least according to my calculations from the data I gathered, is Ben Solo's Redeemed. So that's his unique, which only adds that Ben Solo's attacks ignore protection. So you can definitely see how this can be very niche uses. Now I did apply this Omicron on him, so this was during the era of Datacrons, where I think Unaligned Force users were doing 100% more damage when they had 100% health and protection. Was it something like that? So with this ability, when you could ignore protection, go straight for health, dealing 100% more damage, I put Lifeblood on him, and he could basically one-shot some of the weaker units out of the gate. So that was pretty powerful. Again, very niche use for this Omicron. So if you didn't apply these Omicrons, I think, you know, that was a good decision from your end. And let me give you the stats. So the adoption rate for this one is 37.77% of players apply this Omicron. And then in terms of the impact on offense in win rates, 5v5 reduction in win rates by 1.27%, and in 3v3 reduction of win rates by 2.21%, which gives us a final score of -4.61. And there you have it. That was top 10 most overrated Omicrons on offense. Again, this doesn't mean that these are the worst Omicrons in terms of their impact. It's just comparing them as well, taking into consideration the adoption rate, just to see which ones are overrated. I'll be doing next top 10 most overrated Omicrons for defense. Hopefully I'll see you in that video, but until then, have fun, enjoy life, and may the RNG be with you, my friends.